Hey, folks. Welcome to Kaiser's Castle. Grab a seat on my big orange couch. Grab yourself a coffee, tea, soda, or an adult libation. It matters not. The drawbridge has been lifted. Today, yesterday, I was on Big Sarge Media and Mojo 50. It was BSing with Big Sarge, and that was earlier in the evening. Then all of a sudden, I wake up because I had to get some sleep finally, which, I took a day off, and of course, big news hits. And today, one of my greatest guests that I always have on because he's up to date and on the job and doing his thing, he's also, what I talk about the Warriors ethos, a combat veteran. These things are always important to me because it's just the people I roll with. And I've got a picture of myself up there in a combat zone, and then I'm throwing a picture of Baz's unit, his vehicle, that he put himself in threat. And with that being said, Baz is here, and we're going to talk a little bit about the historic meeting of Trump and Kim Jong-un and the crossing over since I believe it was before or maybe it was during the Vietnam War was the last time a president had actually traveled into North Korea. So one small step for man, one large step for mankind. Hey, Baz, how's it going, brother?
Yeah, all good, brother. How is yourself?
Oh, I cannot complain. Can't complain a bit.
Good, good, good.
I've done this show with several other people. Ryan Llewellyn, who's an expert on North Korea, really good dude, and a Cold War. He runs a Cold War podcast, and a couple other folks. And I've been telling everybody, big moves are being made. North Korea's got some issues, and they actually need some help. Some of the funniest parts has been there's a guy in America called Tucker Carlson. He's a reporter, just to fill you in so you understand. He went in with a bunch of other American reporters, and there was actually a tense moment between the Secret Service, the North Koreans, and the South Korean security services because they were tussling reporters. It got a little, because it's very cramped space, and they didn't like that Kim Jong-un was in that small space at the DMZ. And so that was interesting, but nothing happened, and it seemed positive on the exit. Your thoughts on that, brother?
Yeah, I mean it's obviously a historical moment that's going to I mean it's going to open a few doors, open two more talks, and I think what it is, what you're going to do is look behind the scenes of this and see the reasons why Kim Jong Un is more sort of open to discussion with the West. You know what I mean? That's so much. It's sort of vilified and demonized in North Korea. Um, and I don't think that's going to change overnight. That the West is the devil and all that good stuff. But
Right.
there is an opening there, for change. And let's say hopefully in the next, it's certainly not going to be in the next sort of year or so, but hopefully in the next few years, there's great change and we can sort of reduce that DMZ. And North Korea becomes more of a, let's say, a normal nation rather than the secular sort of dictatorship it is at the minute.
Right. The nomad hermit kingdom that it is. I'm getting a
Yeah.
little feedback from your way. The thing to me is everybody's been shocked by the speed at which this has happened, and I liken it back to what was it, 86, I think it was, on the 75th anniversary. I may be wrong on that, so it might be 85. The 75th anniversary of D-Day. I believe that's what it was. I could be wrong on that too, but yeah, I am wrong on that. That was the. Let me see. Hold on. 45. That was the 40th anniversary when Reagan hit, and then they had the 75th anniversary with Trump. But remember, it was only from 85 to 1989 that the wall fell, the Berlin Wall fell. So that can happen a lot faster, I think, than people think. Some of the people, like I said back in the day with the other folks, I was like, there's a big push on it. And you being a combat vet just like myself, we're the most adverse to war. I mean, if it comes, it comes. We have to deal with it. But we don't want to get embrangled into a foreign war or even a domestic war. It's just not our way. Any warrior doesn't believe that war is good because you've seen the outcomes. Your thoughts?
Yeah. It's on that one. It's 100%, 110% correct. Those who have experienced war, and the sort of side effect to war, both in that host nation where the war's taking part, and obviously returning from war, you see the aftermath, and it goes on for generations. You look at sort of the Bosnian War and stuff like that. I've been to Bosnia a few times, and the reason why I'm not using Afghanistan or Iraq in this because they've always had elements of war and elements of conflict going through, and you could drop a nuclear bomb on Afghanistan and nothing had changed. You know what I mean? There's no sort of, and when I'm talking like Helmand province, there's not much infrastructure and stuff like that. But when you look at sort of like the former Yugoslavia, where there was massive genocide, you know what I mean? There was sort of like black and white. There was three sides to that war. There was obviously the Bosnians, the Croats, and the Serbs, and obviously all that good stuff there. And going back, I was there in the early 90s, and going back in sort of like mid thousands, and there's still minefields everywhere. There's still derelict buildings full of bullet holes. You know what I mean? And they've never recovered from that. The infrastructure is still in shit state. The economy is still in shit state. There's still a massive level of distrust. What you've got to think of is these people woke up one morning, didn't go to work, and just started butchering each other. So there's going to be it's generational change, and that's what war causes. And the North Korea thing is good in a way, like you said there, that it could move quite quickly. But what I meant was the North Korea isn't going to change overnight. They've still got these massive issues with human rights and all these work camps, and it's deinstitutionalizing that entire nation from what it was. You know what I mean? It's deprogramming, and that's going to take a long time because all generations of that nation have been taught to worship the Kim Jong Un and his obviously predecessors, his family, and you're not going to switch that off. But hopefully that sort of edge of Kim Jong Un is sort of taken off slightly by his interaction with the West, interaction with certainly the US, and then relations between North and South can sort of mend themselves, and obviously on the back of that, relations with the rest of the world, which will be good. It'll be interesting and good to see.
Which was another interesting fact. As you brought that up, it came to mind, like I pointed out in the beginning, the North Korean security being worried, where you and I both would trust that with Trump, even Moon there, the South Korean guy who already walked across the border, they spent a full day together. We know that Trump's not going to hit Un. We know with three separate security services and working together in tandem, as it usually is in the West, especially at the G20. That's another proof that's in the pudding. You have everybody there that just happened in Japan. The thing is how weird they got when the media was pressing in, like they thought there was going to be an issue, and if it would have come from any of those three companies or countries as an issue, a lot of people in the West might have thought it would come from the North, but the North instantly thinks there's some fuckery afoot coming from the West. So your point, I believe, is proof positive from the way they reacted to the media rushing in to get pictures and whatnot. Your thoughts?
Yeah. Again, because there's always that. What side of that media does it sit on? You know what I mean? You've got the sort of, especially looking towards your media. You've got sort of the pro-Republican media and obviously the sort of like left wing leaning media that will try and rubbish whatever Trump does. You know what I mean? The guy could fucking cure cancer, and they'd still find some way or mean to rubbish what he's done. But we'll always have that, you know. But there's always that going to be that unbiased media, and that's sort of like 0.1% of the media is that they'll go there as a centrist outlet, just looking to get the facts and report on the facts, where most other media outlets have got some sort of not so much shadowy influence, but they've got influence from government, from you know what I mean, their own sort of political leanings and all that good stuff. And there's obviously that personal leanings in there, so you can see why they were sort of a bit edgy when the press started leaning in, because again, with an outside party looking in, you're never going to be able to strike up a personal relationship, speaking to someone face to face. You know what I mean? Saying, look, um, let's say we put Trump and we put Un in a room together, no press, no fucking secret service, no security services, and just keep him in there for a day, and I guarantee more would come out of that than the past 5 generations or whatever, of political. When I say political talks, I'm using inverted commas. You know what I mean? So yeah, having the media there, it's going to sort of stifle the mood, the attitude of those taking part in these talks. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts are pretty clear. When Gorbachev and Reagan met in Reykjavik, I remember how that went, and they broke off the meeting, and then later on, the Soviet Union fell, and I think that Un, while he has apprehensions because he's seen what has happened, like Gaddafi, Saddam Hussein, Noriega, and sees how we deal with former dictators normally. I think he does not have the trust, but as you and I both know, Trump is not a conventional president, and he hasn't moved in a conventional way at all. And you have the neocons that are banging the war drums for Iran, and sane people like you and I, even Tulsi Gabbard on the Democrat side, and Tucker Carlson both were like, yeah, Mr. President, that's not a good thing, and that's not what we should do. And guess what? Trump didn't go to war with Iran over something he could probably have justified easily. And he had the neocons and the neo progressives pushing for war. And the sooner we identify, I mean, honestly, Tulsi Gabbard's a Democrat and she's running for president against him. But if she doesn't get the nod, I hope Trump replaces Bolton with Tulsi Gabbard, because she is a combat vet. I believe she was a veterinarian nurse in Iraq. So, she's seen some shit.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a president needs to surround himself with people that want to get the job done, not want to sort of enhance their own CV. Because at the end of the day, especially with his sort of very divisive presidency, he needs to surround himself with strong people, people that are going to look at, let's say, the media sort of side of Donald Trump. The tweets and the pussy grabbing and all that fucking stuff. You know what I mean? Look past that bullshit and say, look, this is a guy that isn't Obama, that isn't Reagan, that isn't Bush one or two. He's going to do things a different way because he's not really been a politician. He's not a thoroughbred politician like the rest of them really were. He came in on a media wave, you know what I mean, and he was very clever. He used the media to get where he was, you know what I mean. And look at him now; he's the president of the United States, the world's only superpower. So he's very unorthodox, and in a way that's good. It adds an element of sort of uncertainty to it, but he's not a stupid guy. Sometimes when he speaks, he doesn't come across as an eloquent politician. But again, remember, he's a businessman. He's not a politician. He's used to being very aggressive and very calculated in what he does. He doesn't mask his words. You know, um, so yeah, it's good. I think to be honest, as a Brit, as an outsider, and not have sort of any skin in the game with US politics, I think he's doing a good job. Everybody's got a bit of a shady past. It's just that they like to bring up Donald Trump's more than anybody else's. because again, it's such a divisive presidency. But it's good to see. Did Obama set foot in North Korean soil? No. Did them in the bushes? No. Again, so he's making history, and that in my eyes is a doer and not a talker, which is good.
The essence of pure detente, brother. I can't
Yeah.
agree with you more. The most beautiful thing is that I try to look dispassionately at everything. I consider myself, although I lean right, but that's only because of experience in life. It does not mean that I can't be a political atheist, because none of these people who get elected are ever going to really affect my life. Their policies may, but I just can't see any president or governor or anybody deciding, no, we want Kaiser arrested. That's not going to happen. Whereas a dictator, just like you said earlier, I mean, the one group you left out was the Macedonians.
Yeah.
And if memory serves, they used to wear the German Flecktarn camouflage. And that one police chief you and I were talking about the one time, my buddy who was teaching him, was mentoring him. Let me rephrase that. And the guy got released home because they had heard a Macedonian hit squad was in the neighborhood where his family lived. And he opened up the closet, or, it's not really a closet. You know how they do in Europe. They can't really have closets because they get taxed for another room. So those big cabinet things they call closets. Finds his son spiked onto the door of the closet, and when he opens the closet because he can't find anybody, there's his son swinging on the door with a knife through his chest. So,
Mm.
it's just that kind of fuckery that I don't think we're going to see from Trump. But I can't say the same thing. I mean, if Hillary was in office, do you think we'd be talking to Korea? I don't think
No.
so.
No. No.
And honestly, I can't say that we would have with McCain or Romney. So see how I look at things. I'm an equal opportunity hater. If I don't believe in him, and honestly, Obama, he never did anything to do anything except help the Near Eastern Muslim terrorists. Honestly, he didn't help Americans at all, and so he was a bit of a piker too. So at least Trump's, like you said, he's a doer. He's not a talker.
Yeah, and it's important because I mean it's a fresh sort of take on a politician, especially as a president or a prime minister, is to, do you know what? Let's cut all this bullshit out. Let's not set up this fucking meeting in 8 months' time. He did it via Twitter. You know what I mean? He said, "Look,
Right.
I'll come and fucking meet you." And obviously, Kim Jong Un's just gone. Do you know this is an opportunity? And all credit to the North Korean leader. You know what I mean? He even though 99.9% of his population can't access the internet because they're not allowed, but he can jump on Twitter, which is comical. But the good thing is he turned up. He didn't say no, this is a ruse or anything like that. It was there for the world to see, and he did. And I showed that shows some goodwill on his sort of part as well. Showing that he knows that his country is being left behind by everybody else, like China and that region alone. It's come leaps and bounds in the past sort of couple of decades, and he's still sat there. I mean, you look at his military, you look at his infrastructure, and everything's just so Cold War, 1950s, 1960s. He needs to, if he wants to survive, if he wants his nations to survive, he's got to sort of like get with the times a little bit. And this is, like you said at the beginning, it's a small step for man, but a large step for his nation, North Korea. Which is, well, again, it'll be interesting to see where it goes. As long as, again, cool heads prevail and the next sort of saber rattling, because North Korea, being North Korea, are always going to sort of exert strength in the region, and it's for their own survivability.
Right.
That's what it is. At the end of the day, no matter what they've done, they've still got ever so many thousands of US troops on their border. You know what I mean? they're staring at each other through binoculars day and night, the North and South Koreans. There's always going to be that stalemate, and I mean, they were at war not so long ago.
No, you're
And to be
exactly
honest,
right.
that was never really finished. Of all the paper and stuff like that, but the border's still there. But again, it's just downsizing all that, and I think it's going to be sort of like, you tickle my balls and I'll tickle yours. You take ever so many thousands of troops away and I'll take so many troops away. I will start opening up checkpoints where people can come through and visit family. And, but again, it's, South Korea will be like, yeah, come on through, come on through. But North Korea will always be guarded. There'll always be that sort of like suspicion, that paranoia. And again, it's just getting over that. But that is something that I think the world, not just the United States, but the world will have to take on board, especially like the United Nations, Amnesty International, the Red Cross, NATO, and to a certain extent, China play a massive part in that because they're the big boys in that region. Um,
And Russia, it still shares a 13-mile border.
yeah, yeah, certainly, but certainly the Chinese will have a lot to say in the matter because again, if for some you know what I mean? Let's start sort of throwing what ifs out there. If North Korea all of a sudden became a capitalist country overnight, you know,
It'd be
and
ruinous to South Korea. They couldn't absorb it. Just like with
yeah,
East Germany and West Germany merger. I think Un understands that. And look at what happened to Honecker, Melke, all of the leadership just about in former East Germany. It didn't really work out well for him. And
no,
I think he's learned from that it will be a slow integration. But like you said, it's an an armistice right now, and we don't have a peace treaty. But I would not doubt that we could maybe get a peace treaty done with a division of nations with a slow opening, just like when Nixon went to China. I'm not saying going to China was a good thing because look at how their geopolitical ambitions have grown. But he was the first one to travel to China, and it did give them a certain openness to the West. Not all for the good either. I'm not, please don't take that I'm being a fool on that because I disagree with several things Nixon did too. So, but the point being is this is a vital first step to possibly getting an actual workable peace treaty. And because of things happening today, you get the final word because I'm going to have to shut the thing down and close up Kaiser's Castle's drawbridge for the evening. And this was just going to be a quick hit. Honestly, me and Baz will be doing another show, quote unquote, knock on wood, this Thursday. And we'll go in depth and finalize. But this was breaking, and Baz and I both had this small window of opportunity to do a quick show. And with that being said, Baz, what are your final remarks? And I will mute.
yeah, like I say, it's. I think it's going to be sort of like a regional issue. First of all, it's going to be localized. Trump and the South Koreans and North Koreans, but then I think all parties. When I say all parties, certainly the North Koreans and the Americans would be wise to open the floodgates for other nations to come in. Certainly the Russians, certainly the Chinese, North Koreans, and then maybe the European Union, and whether that's going to include the UK is yet to be seen. But again, because it's stabilising that region, it's just one less threat to our servicemen, our servicewomen. You know what I mean, and the wider globe itself, because conflict always sort of like generates domestic loathing, I'll say. Look at the Iraq Afghanistan conflict. All that's done is turn the will of certain demographics of our own societies, you know what I mean, against us. And it's a lot harder to combat that when it's on your own back step, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Uh, yeah, so that's more sort of my 10 pence worth. Get talking, get people involved. Different organisations. Let's get this fucking area sorted out because having a dictatorship with a very sort of like ideological culture that they've got with their hands on nuclear weapons is never a good thing. You know, it doesn't turn out well. You know, that paranoia only just starts that preemptive sort of action and all that good stuff. But again, brother, it's been a pleasure, and hopefully we'll carry this on Thursday. Again, we'll probably digress on Thursday and touch on something completely different. But again, it's been a pleasure to take a seat on your big orange couch.
No problem, brother. I'm glad you did. With that being said, folks, yeah, he's talking about their philosophy of Juche, which just in North Korean is survival. They really aren't communist anymore. They're just a dictatorship of the Kim Jong Un and his father before him and his grandfather before him. And it's one on Dear Leader. If you want to read a good book, it's Michael Malice, who wrote a good book called Dear Reader. And it's about, they've always called them Dear Leaders. So that's a good primer for you guys to read and look at. Also, go to the Cold War podcast with Ryan Llewellyn. It's a really good podcast. Also, Jaffe Riders WPRPN, World Podcast Radio Network. And then you can get some good info from the Boiler Room. The cats there, they usually break stuff down. Sorry this is such a quick show, but things have to get done. And with that being said, Shuff's rolling up the drawbridge at Kaiser's Castle. And he's glad that you guys sat on his big orange seats and enjoyed your coffee, tea, soda, or adult libation on his big orange couch. Shuff out.